your expression is you don't want to have a billboard in a forest. In other words, you could write the best blog that anyone has ever written, right? It could be just all inclusive of the topic. It could be engaging. And if nobody finds it, what's the point, right? Because the point, as you said earlier, is to bring in qualified leads, hopefully convert those leads to clients. So the SEO tools that we use really help us to do that.
If you're an attorney in the pursuit of a successful law practice, fulfilling career, and the life of your dreams, this podcast has it all. Behind the Bench gives you great tools to overcome the unique challenges you face every day as a law firm owner. Welcome to Behind the Bench podcast with your host, Josh Konigsberg, author, partner, and co-founder of Law Firm Marketing Pros and lifelong entrepreneur.
Welcome to another captivating episode of Behind the Bench podcast. This is your host, Josh Konigsberg, and as many of you know, I'm a digital marketing expert specializing in helping lawyers generate more qualified leads online and thus enhance their law firm revenues. Join us as we explore the fascinating realm of law, featuring insightful discussions, seasoned lawyers, legal experts, and industry leaders. Special thank you to our sponsor, Law Firm Marketing Pros. They get you more leads, more clients, and more profits. Hey, Josh Konigsberg here with another exciting episode of Behind the Bench podcast. I'm super excited today to welcome our guest and my friend, Daria DiGiovanni. She is an accomplished writer and a seasoned content expert with nearly 3 decades of experience. As the content manager at Law Firm Marketing Pros, Daria leads a talented team creating SEO-driven content that positions attorneys as the go-to authorities in their market, and more importantly, generates qualified leads. Daria's impressive writing career includes authoring and ghostwriting multiple books, editing for a variety of industry professionals, and developing high-performing blogs and articles that rank on Google and drive real results. In today's episode, she's going to share with us her insights on crafting content that attracts clients, builds trust, and turns readers into leads. Welcome, Daria. Super excited about today.
Me too. Thank you so much, Josh. Wow, I feel a little old. 30 years of experience, but
well, just more mature. That's all. Right. Like a fine wine. So, Daria, I can remember when you started with us, probably about 7 years ago. Has it been now? Something like that?
Well, it was 6 in December, but yeah, about 6.5. Okay. Yeah, about.
Right. So, life before Daria was very difficult from a content perspective. We tried a couple of outsourcing. We had some independent contractors. But we decided to get an experienced content writer such as yourself. And you kind of, as we grew, as the agency grew, you grew into the role and eventually became the content manager, right? So if you could talk a little bit about how we started collaborating together and to get right to the point, how was the content back then compared to what it's like today?
Oh, I love this story. So we have a mutual friend who always used to tell me, because I think she was doing some work for you at the time, and she was like, oh my gosh, the content's terrible. I keep telling Josh he needs to talk to you. Well, eventually one day I came to your office in Jupiter. I don't know if you remember that. And we had an introduction, and that basically led to me freelancing. And I was doing all kinds of things like website content, blogs, whatever you guys needed, press releases. And I did see the blogs at that time, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, we can definitely do better. And I believe it was about 6 months into it when Andy actually reached out to me and said, hey, we want to up our content game. I didn't say it exactly like that, but basically, how would you like to be the content manager? Because we're ready to get to the next level. For me, that was really exciting because I had always wanted to join like a smaller company at a time when they were getting ready to like move to that next level so that I could kind of grow with them. Because I've learned just as much. I've learned so much from you guys. And I think it was mutually beneficial because, I kind of learned what you guys needed, and your feedback, even in the beginning when I was freelancing, was really helpful because you would share like websites with me and you'd be like, hey, I really like this content. Can we do something similar for this client? And as a writer, just getting very clear direction and understanding what a client wants, whether it's internal client or even now, with our clients that we work with now, like And we're going to talk about that, I know, in a little bit, but just getting very clear on who they are, what they want, how they want to present themselves to the world, who their target audience is. All of those things are so important for a writer because we can then deliver on what they want when we know what it is and we're crystal clear on what they're offering and who that ideal client is.
So back then, I want to say we probably only had about 10 or 12 employees, right?
Yeah,
It's a very small team, very, very, very intimate team, maybe even fewer than that. And now, geez, I think we're about 55. So you've actually, what you wanted has in fact happened, right? So let's talk a little bit about technology, the internet, the Google algorithm, and how everything continues to change. And obviously we're going to get into AI in a little bit, but it continues to change and evolve. How has that impacted you as a content writer and a manager?
It's amazing, really. Like technology has been so helpful. Like some of the SEO tools, for example, really help us. I think your expression is you don't want to have a billboard in a forest. In other words, you could write the best blog that anyone has ever written, right? It could be just all inclusive of the topic. It could be engaging. And if nobody finds it, what's the point, right? Because the point, as you said earlier, is to bring in qualified leads, hopefully convert those leads to clients. So the SEO tools that we use really help us to do that. I also want to say, like, when somebody comes on board, a new client, we do a very in-depth branding call. And that speaks to the point I just mentioned about really getting to know the client, who their client is, what services they're offering, because, it's all different. So let's say it's estate planning. Well, what do you want to promote within that? Those kinds of things. And even before we get to the branding call, Zane, who is actually she's a junior writer now, we promoted her, but she was our first hire in the content department. She was our virtual assistant, and from the beginning, she told me she wanted to write, and she proved herself, and now she's writing. She's still doing some administrative things, but she basically will take the keyword report from John, who's our web dev manager, even before that branding call, and Zane will come up with 12 topics for the year, and with the focus keyword, which is basically the high intent long tail keyword that we include in every blog. And that needs to be there along with all of the cluster keywords, which are the supporting keywords. So by the time I get on that branding call with that new client, we go through this list and we say, hey, based on your keyword report that we did, here's some topics that we suggest. The underlying terms represent the focus keyword. And I kind of explain to them, because you can't assume, and this is one thing, and I mean, I've been guilty of this too, like, you can't assume that people understand digital marketing. Like, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand what it's like to go into a courtroom and plead somebody's case, right? So I don't want to ever assume that they understand things, which is why on the branding call from the beginning, I explain what a focus keyword is. I don't get too in depth, but I want to explain just enough so they understand that we have a strategy behind this. We're not just writing for the sake of writing. As much as I love to write, again, if it's not driving traffic to your website, if it's not getting people to pick up the phone and call you, if it's not positioning you as the expert, we don't say that word. I know we're going to talk about that too. We don't use the word expert, but we want to position our clients as the authority, so that they come across as competent, and also approachable if that's their, some clients like to be more formal, others like to be more approachable. But the whole point is there's a strategy behind this. I explain enough so that they understand that there's a strategy without getting too far into the weeds. And that really helps us to get the results that we're getting from our blogs.
So let's start at the highest level. And so because there's a lot of confusion about what content is and what it's used for. Right? Because technically speaking, social media is content. Technically speaking, video is content. So specific to the written content, what are the pillars that we use, and what strategy would help, for example, a personal injury attorney? So let's start with the content that your department is responsible for let's say a personal injury attorney.
Okay. So we're responsible for blogs and press releases and also web page content. And we have blogs and super blogs, and we can get into that distinction in a minute. But basically, the blogs are really designed to be, I even hate to call them blogs. I even hate that term because it doesn't really do them justice, because they're informative articles, whether they're an 800-word standard blog or a 3,000-word super blog. They follow Google's EEAT formula, which stands for expertise. Again, we don't use the word expert, but it comes through in the writing. Expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So our goal is for when that personal injury attorney, let's say somebody was in a car accident, we're writing a blog about, 5 things to do after a car accident, something like that. we always want to keep in mind that somebody that lands on that blog, if they've been in a car accident, we think about what would I want to know if I was in a car accident, right? And we want to include those things. And obviously the keywords all play into that. And we want to make sure that we are positioning that client as the authority so that that person calls them or fills out the contact form on their website rather than their competitor. So the blog needs to be thorough. It needs to answer all their questions. It has to be optimized for SEO. And then there are things that they do on the back end in our web department, which we could talk about also. But all these things combined, the imagery we select, the branding, all of those things combined really help with the rankings. And of course, we want to get them on page 1 of Google. And we want to show up in search engine results page features like the AI overview, like that's a big one now. Image carousel, the people also ask feature. We always have these things in mind when we're writing the blog, and the research that Zane does ahead of time really helps with that, because even though we're all internal, we have a staff of in-house writers, which I think is really important to mention also. So there's accountability within our department. We're not hiring freelance writers who are just going to, flake out on you, send you something that's not good quality, and then you don't hear from them again. I mean, we have accountability because everybody's a full-time employee here. But even so, we still use order forms as if we are tasking somebody outside of the organization. So those order forms are very specific. They have the focus keyword, the cluster keyword, and then Zane in her research, she'll indicate on the form, hey, this keyword came from Google's people also ask feature, or I took this keyword from a competitor. And it's really great because as a writer, wow, okay, I'm going to make sure that I include those keywords. And then as the manager, when I review a blog before I send it to a client, I highlight every keyword and I tell them in a comment, we took this from a competitor. Please don't remove it. We want to increase rankings for this keyword. Please don't remove it. This keyword increased, like Zane will tell me how much a keyword has increased in rankings, and I'll let them know, because way back in the beginning, I'm talking years ago, before I was doing that, people tended to take keywords out, or if they didn't understand the purpose. So
Correct, yes.
It's very important.
So describe for our listeners, you used a couple different phrase words that they might not understand. So you talk about a cluster keyword. And so what are the different types of keywords that we're using, and why are they important?
So the focus keyword is the long tail, high intent keyword. So just getting
what does long tail mean? Because some of them don't know that.
It's long, one I just saw today, actually, because I was reviewing a blog for another client in Michigan, like how to get a divorce in Michigan. That whole phrase was the focus keyword for this particular blog that I reviewed right before I got on here. So long tail meaning they're long, they tend to be longer, but they're also high intent, meaning there's high intent behind that search. Like getting back to the car accident example, it might be, what to do after a car accident, let's just say in Georgia. That person, that's what they're using because they really need an answer to that question. So they're ready, they're ready to buy, kind of.
Right. So they're further along the buying cycle or further down to the funnel. We talk about top of funnel, yes, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. They're at the bottom of the funnel, and they're actually expending more energy to type in or speak in more words, which means they're long tail. So you're not going to expend that energy if you're not close to buying. So that's the first thing. So we talk about long tail, yes, and focus, right?
Right.
And then go ahead.
And let me just add too, that focus keyword, it has to be in the title. It has to be in the meta description. I'll explain what that is in a second. And then it also has to appear preferably in the first paragraph of the blog. Sometimes that's hard to do. I make sure we get it in before the first H2, which is just the heading, heading 2, which is the font. Yeah. So the meta description is for Google. And Vince taught us to write them in a very specific way, city, state, get that focus keyword in there, get the phone number in there within the first 100 characters. These are all processes that we follow so that when that little summary, basically it's just a summary of the blog. So that person types in that keyword, the blog pops up, that meta description shows the phone number, and it also tells them what they can expect to read if they click on that blog. And that is super important. That's important because if they're reading from a mobile phone or a mobile device, it's a click to call. So for all you listeners out there, if your content and SEO team are not doing this, they don't know what they're doing. So, and I do audits on a regular basis, almost daily audits, and I see it all the time, right? So if my assumption is if they're doing this wrong, they're doing other things wrong, and
I always find other things that they're doing wrong. So, all right. So now let's talk about because it used to be the word cluster was a negative with like keyword stuffing. It's kind of the same assumption. So you can't say personal injury attorney, personal injury lawyer, personal injury attorney, personal injury lawyer in the metadata because that's considered keyword stuffing. So what's the difference between that and a keyword cluster?
So cluster keywords really like a secondary. We call them secondary keywords too. They're basically supporting keywords. So they're also search terms that somebody's using on that particular topic. Again, if we get back to the car accident example, it might be attorneys for car accidents. I'm just making things up that I can think of in my head right now. But they basically, they're also search terms. They're not as heavily used as the focus keyword, but they also support the rankings for the blog. As a writer, though, let me just speaking to your point. You have to be very artful in the way you incorporate these. So our blogs never read like they were keyword stuffed. You have to be very subtle about it. And it's just, it takes talent. It takes skill. It really does. There's definitely an art to it.
Other So Law Firm Marketing Pros is better. I've been told over and over again by other marketers and by other clients that we're just better. Okay. So let's talk about when it comes to content, why our content is better. And we have like 7 things that we do differently than most other agencies. And some other agencies might be doing all of these things, but there's other things that we do that I know that they're not, right? To help drive qualified leads. So I know we're using seasoned writers. One of them is a JD, right? So there was 2, right? So we've got somebody coming out of a law firm for 25 years and a JD.
Yes.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And then we have, like I said, we have Zane, who started out as a virtual assistant. And in the interview, I said to her, and let me just back up and say, I was the content department years ago when I first started. So it was basically me managing a service. And I always thought in the back of my mind that I was going to take my experiences as an employee with both good and bad managers. And if I ever got into a position of being a manager, I was going to not do what the bad managers did and model the good ones. So that's what I've tried to do. But anyway, Zane, when I interviewed her, I said, well, why do you want to work for the content department? She says, because I love to write. I want to be a writer. So I knew, I was going to be able to kind of mentor her along. And so she started out strictly doing administrative things. But like within a year, I gave her some smaller writing projects to do, like the newsletter summaries and bullets that we include in the monthly newsletters, that lead into the blog. And my God, I mean, she was fantastic. And now she's writing blogs. She's writing some other content. We have Erin, like I said, who came to us with 25 years of experience at a law firm. And the thing that's great with Erin is she really helps me get inside the mind of an attorney sometimes, and we know that some days are challenging, right? And, sometimes maybe you get feedback and you're trying to figure out how to best serve the client or what they're really asking for. And she's so good at understanding, like, hey, attorneys, she understands from working for attorneys kind of like what they're looking for. So she always helps me with that, as well as being an excellent, fantastic writer and just high quality. Same with Lance.
So let's just briefly talk about how in depth we go, like the levels that we go, just on the branding conversation that we have when we onboard a new client.
So it goes way beyond the basics, like logo, colors, fonts. I mean, we get way beyond that, and we're really trying to understand, like, who's your client? How do they feel? How do they feel when they come to you? Are they frustrated? Are they tired? Have they? A lot of times people will say, "Oh God, they're so frustrated because they've been to 3 other attorneys and they don't return their phone calls," or whatever it is. Okay, how do they feel while they're working with you? And we'll get things like, well, they feel supported. They feel like we care. One client told us on the branding call, they don't just get an attorney. They get and I know Vince doesn't like this word, but this is what this client told me. They get an entire team. So they get a paralegal. They get a, legal secretary. They get that they feel like there's a bunch of people supporting them. And that are always there to answer the call for them. Maybe they can text them 24/7. So we really get to the heart of how people feel working with them. And then afterwards, like, what do people say about you? What do some of your reviews say when you're done? Oh my God, they were great. They made me feel important. I'm so relieved because, now I can pay my bills. Let's say they had it was a workers' comp thing or a personal injury, and maybe they were out of work. And they're just thrilled and they're relieved because this attorney was able to, get the right settlement for them that they needed. So we ask those kinds of questions. We talk about their taglines and also how they want to come across. This is really important too, like tone and voice. And I tell them, look, we're always going to make you come across as the authority and competent But beyond that, do you want to come across as like approachable? And that's usually what I recommend for people, in most cases, because you want the person, there's a fine line. You want the person to feel like they're in good hands, but you also want them to feel like that you're approachable, that they can talk to you, that you're not like up here somewhere and they're afraid. And as we know, for most people, it's their first time calling an attorney. So I think it's really important that that tone comes across as like, we're here to support you. Yes, we have the knowledge and the competence you need, and we're here to support you. Let's talk about your problem, kind of thing. I think that's really important. And that's usually what I recommend. There's some clients that prefer to be more formal, and that's fine too. It depends on their clientele. Sure. But by and large, I think the approachable tone is really what most people choose.
Let's talk very briefly about compliance, because it's non-negotiable. And I was really looking forward to this because I was absolutely shocked the other day on I-95. I saw a billboard for a personal injury attorney, and it had the word expert on it.
Really?
I was absolutely stunned. I almost took a picture of it. Who's
their digital marketing agency? No.
Yeah, right. Well, it's not even their digital. It's their ad agency, right? Incompetent. So let's talk about how we ensure the compliance and that we adhere to the 7 forbidden words as promulgated by the ABA.
Yeah, so there are 7 forbidden words in legal advertising. One of them is specialist in any form of that. So we cannot say that an attorney specializes in estate planning, let's say. Can never say that they're an expert or that they have expertise. And it is frustrating as a writer. Sometimes it's really hard because you got to come up with other ways to say this. What else? Like get, obtain, deserve. These are all words we try to stay away from.
Yeah, you can't guarantee either.
Can't guarantee. You can't say like, we will get results for you or we'll get you the compensation you deserve. No, like you can't say that. Now we might, you can say that we'll fight relentlessly for fair compensation. We can say that we'll pursue compensation on your behalf. There's other ways of saying it, but you cannot, because it comes across as a guarantee. And there are some murky areas, sometimes context matters. Like if we're writing a web page and we're pointing to specific results, like we have recovered millions, if you're linking to the page where we have all of those things documented, that's a different story. But really, for the most part, we stay away from those words altogether, 100%. Like we'll never say that in a blog.
I saw it a couple weeks ago in a meta description also. As I was doing an audit.
Really bad. That's really bad.
In a meta
really
description.
Bad.
So
yeah.
So earlier you mentioned something called super blog. So maybe you can describe for our listeners the difference between a super blog and our standard blog and why it matters.
Sure. So our standard blogs come with some of our service packages. They are they're a minimum of 800 words and somewhere, sometimes we might go a little bit over like 1100. It depends on the topic, but that's where they pretty much stop. Like they don't go much further than like 1100 words. And we still use EEAT. They're still optimized. And we use one image that we brand with the client's logo for those. But the super blogs, are between 1500 and 3000 words. And they also include a lot of additional features such as ads, clickable ads. And what I do is we use those keywords in the ads as well. So I don't know, I'm just making something up here, but like stop searching for estate planning attorneys near me. Like if that was a keyword, I'll figure out a creative way to put that in the ad. Click here to schedule a consultation and it clicks to their contact page.
And so the ad isn't just a random ad for, let's say, a CRM or for a car rental. It's an ad for the law firm in the law firm's blog.
Correct. Right. Because if they landed on a blog and they're looking, they want to start estate planning, that's what they're interested in. I'm not going to, why would I, there's no reason to put something else in there. You really want to answer their question, solve their need.
Right.
And then our design team will then like create the graphics. So I write the ad copy, they write the graphics. We also include infographics. And it's kind of fun as a writer too, because you kind of, after you write it, you're looking at it and you think to yourself, well, this is really going to make a great infographic. And then we instruct the graphics team, like in the G-Doc for the blog, hey, please create an infographic. Like, here's the title, include these bullets. We spell it all out for them. And then they create, they brand it with the client's logo, and they're very creative. They do a great job with that. And then of course the keywords. So,
yeah. So not only do we do all the other things we do on our normal blog, but we have added features to help get that blog to rank even better.
Right.
And for those who are wondering, well, why don't we get that anyway? Because it's much more expensive for us, and we're trying to keep the cost of our packages, as cost effective and as efficient as possible. So you mentioned 3,000 words. Actually, I've seen them more. So it might even be 3,500 or 4,000. No extra money for that. We don't charge, for example, by the word. So, they're amazing content. It's amazing content and drivers of qualified leads. So, your team has done an absolutely amazing job with these performance reports. Can you speak to that a little bit and the best performing reports that we're seeing?
Gosh, I have a couple of stories I want to share about this. So getting back to Zane, I think her ears are going to be ringing now, but Zane started creating these blog performance reports a couple of years ago. And actually, Josh, you were really helpful too, because you really helped us refine them to where they are now. So they're phenomenal. So there's this tool that she uses to go in and she can pinpoint a lead that came from a blog. And there's a very specific way that she does that. I don't want to get into all the details here, but there's different dashboards that she logs into, and we know we can pinpoint where these leads came from. And we put them together in a nice looking report for the client. And the first page has the key takeaways. So we'll tell them about their rankings. We'll tell them, 45 keywords are in search engine results page features. And each of those things are defined, by the way, in the blog performance report. So we never assume that somebody even knows what a search engine results page feature is. Like, she'll have a little graphic that'll say, like, what is the people also ask feature? And it explains it in a cute little graphic. Or AI overview, which is a big thing now. And a lot of our blogs are showing up in the AI overview feature, which is really exciting. So these blogs, they reinforce with clients the importance of content. Because I think a lot of times, in my experience, people think blogs maybe are nice, but they don't really understand why they're getting them or what's the point. And we know with the whole halo marketing concept that everything we do supports every service that we offer. It all supports each other and supports the client's results. But specifically with blogs, they will get you rankings. We want you to show up on page 1 of Google. We want you to show up in these search engine results page features, and we want people to call you. And so every blog page, thanks to our web team, has the contact form right on that page. So when they land on that, they can fill out that form to get to the attorney, or they can call them. The phone number's on there. And they're really designed, we want them to bring in leads. We want them to rank high. We want them to contribute to the success of their overall campaigns, including whatever else they're doing. So
what would the difference be between creating a blog and then creating a press release, which we're syndicating on a special press release syndication app that we subscribe to?
They're awesome. So our press releases, this is another thing I have to explain to clients because they're very different from like traditional press releases. So our press releases are all about the Google ranking signals, right? And the organic SEO. So we use Signal Genesis, Quantum Distribution. And so they have a list of high domain authority media sites, meaning media sites that have high domain authority with Google. And that's who we distribute to. So it's not going to be like wherever the client's located, their local media. That's not what these do. And these are things that I explained. I have different templates, and I actually create Loom videos. Every time I send a press release for review, I create a Loom video. Because again, I don't care how long they've been a client. I never want to assume that they understand this, because honestly, it took me a while to wrap my head around what we were doing because I was so used to the traditional press releases. So what happens is we first, they approve their press release. We publish it on their website. When that URL is live, we hyperlink it in the content when we submit it to Quantum Distribution, and that's going to give them the quality backlinks from all of those media sites. And it's going to support their Google ranking, the ranking signals. And basically, again, just contribute to the overall success of their content and everything else that they're doing. And I'm going to say, as a matter of fact, one of our clients in Virginia has gotten a couple leads from press releases, which was amazing. Yes, they have.
And so for those of you listening out there, if your agency is not creating press releases, they're doing your content wrong, because this all supports SEO. It supports your Google Business Profile ranking, and it supports your organic rankings. And if they are creating press releases and they are using the traditional PR news wires, they're doing it wrong. So getting back to the performance report, you said you had a couple stories that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
share one because I don't want to drag on, and there's a couple more important questions I want to get to.
Just a couple of quick things. So we have one client in North Carolina. When he upgraded his service package a couple of years ago to include monthly blogs, he kept telling me, I don't want blogs. I don't want blogs. And I'm like, but you're paying for blogs. I had to get Andy and I had to get on a call with him. And the problem was that he'd been burned by a previous agency, bad quality content, inaccurate, whatever. He had all kinds of laundry list of complaints. And we said, hey, give us a chance, right? Well, now his blogs are getting leads. So 2 years later, we've been doing his blogs. He loves his blogs. He's happy. Another client in Virginia, different one that I'm thinking of. I mean, we are just crushing it for them. And it took, the thing is though, with them, I was looking this up. They started in like 2021. And I don't think our blogs were ranking for it took a good year or two before they were and now he's our best, they're our best client as far as like blog results and leads from blogs.
Performance. Best performing blog client where they're actually not only getting leads, they're actually getting conversions.
They're getting conversions. Yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, his last blog performance report was over 100 pages. That's insane. It started out as a couple of pages. And then just another quick client that I'm thinking of out in Washington State, their blogs didn't start ranking till last year, right? And the exciting thing is a blog that we published on January 1st of this year, 2025, brought in a $25,000 case, within a month. Okay. So I guess my point is, it's like anything else. You have to stick with it. It builds. Yes, we have a strategy, but we don't totally control Google. And if they can just kind of let us do our thing, they are going to get results. It's just, I just can't predict exactly. That's why I tell them on the branding call. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months. We're just going to keep doing our thing and it's going to work. You just have to trust the process.
Right. That's right. And it takes time. So talk a little bit about website authority, website structure, and how that impacts content.
Well, can I say that we have the best web team ever? I just love our web team. Shout out to John and Amir. What they do on the back end, we wouldn't have the success that we're having if not for the things that they're doing. And I'm not super technical on what they do on the back end, but it's phenomenal. And I know that Amir years ago worked out, there's a content planning sheet that we use. We have to have specific, when we submit a blog, a web, really whatever it is, a press release, a web page, there's information that he needs to be able to do what he does on the other side of things. And so we have to be really specific in how we fill things out and make sure that's filled out completely. 100%, like our hyper optimized websites, all the things that they do, the LSS pages, all of that contributes. One client finally in Massachusetts, yesterday in the operations meeting, we were talking about how, yay, we finally got a ranking for one blog. And I get excited because I know it's just going to build on each other. So it might just be one blog.
She's only been with us for about 4 or 5 months. So,
exactly.
You mentioned LSS. Our audience doesn't know what that is. It's our proprietary software that we've developed to increase your digital footprint geographically on SEO, so you can get more leads outside of your current geography without having to pay the per click on Google. So it's organic ranking. So I want to turn the conversation very quickly to AI, because obviously everything's AI crazy. We lost a client not too long ago because we weren't using AI in the manner that they thought that they should be using it. Of course, we know that I have an old saying is you can tell who the pioneers are, right? They're the ones with the arrows in their back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that were doing AI content got the Google slap and lost all of the rankings. And it wasn't just for the blogs and the content. It was websites. It was Google business profiles. It had a cascading effect. So we are using AI, but if you can describe to the audience and our listeners how we're using it and how we integrate that with our real content writers, our human beings.
Yeah. So we use it wisely. We use it as a writing assistant. And instead of a human, it's AI. We have a tool that we use that I absolutely love because it was made for marketing agencies. It's super helpful. Actually, it's come a long way. It allows us, we can upload branding documents now. We can add links, all kinds of things. And it really helps you get started. It outlines blogs. It does really well. But we have a style guide that we created like 3 or 4 years ago. And I also added an AI section to that. So we have our AI protocols. There are certain words that scream AI that we absolutely avoid. It's kind of like the forbidden words. If I see them, I take them out. One of them is the word ensure. It absolutely drives me crazy when I see that word because it's just so overused.
It is overused. Yeah.
It's terribly overused. I mean, that's one, and navigate's another one. Navigating this, navigate that. Or so again, just from using it wisely, and we've developed these protocols over time. So we have a whole checklist. We have our protocols in place. I'm always referring to those when I review a blog. Our writers are really good about, like I said, using it as a tool, finding alternate ways of saying things. Like even the sentence structure, I can tell if something was written by AI just by the way the sentence is structured, and I'll just flip it around. So we're careful, but it is super helpful though too. I mean, there definitely are a lot of positives about it. It does speed up the process. It's great for creating outlines. It's helpful even with press releases. But again, you need human discernment to be able to use the tool wisely, and that's what we do here.
So a tool like Answer the Public, which will tell you what people are searching for in a given market, especially for long tail, right? Jasper helps us with our titles, right? Is that correct?
Yes, and DLF content, lead magnets, email sequences. Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, for all you listeners out there, if your agency is using AI to write the content, whether it be for your website or for a blog, highly, highly recommend them not doing that. So it should be a blend to get the best results. So it's now time to move on to my favorite part of all this, and this has been tremendous, Daria. And I call this the lightning round. It's the know, like, and trust, where our listeners get to know you, like you, and trust you more. So I'm just going to fire off 10 questions, and you just answer them quickly as whatever the thought that comes to mind. Okay? It's just a lot of fun. So what never fails to make you laugh?
Okay, the answer to that one's actually who. I'm going to say my brother Mark, because he has, from the time I was little, he's my oldest brother, I'm the youngest. He just has this natural sense of humor, and he's just naturally funny. I don't think it's just a gift that he has. So especially if I'm feeling down or something's going on, I mean, he never fails to make me laugh about something. So
that's great to have a relationship like that. Wonderful.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So what is the best compliment you ever got?
I'm going to say my dad, my late dad, just when, my father was always so complimentary. He'd always tell my mom, my sister, and I that you ladies look beautiful, like especially if it was a holiday or we were going somewhere. And I just think any compliment from my dad, makes me smile when I think of it. So
yeah, that's wonderful.
I was very blessed in that regard. Yeah.
So is there a person that you trade places with for a day?
Wow. I know I thought about this one a lot, and wow, it's tough. But, I think it would be interesting, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on here with you, but I would love to kind of just to understand more about you and like those pressures and stress of running a business. So I think it'd be cool.
Oh, you want to be in my seat right now?
I think it would.
Well, the first thing is, as soon as you get here, I want to raise. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You deserve one. No, but honestly, no, seriously, I was thinking a lot about that question, and just from this side of things, you don't see like the pressure and the stress that's involved in payroll and just everything, and just keeping clients happy. And so I've never owned. I mean, I've been a freelancer, but that's not like running a business. I mean, it's it's just you. It's different. So I think that would be kind of cool and eye opening.
Thank you. That's great. I appreciate that. So what is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure. Wow. Okay. I was just thinking about this the other day. So there are these cookies called Capellos. I'm gluten-free. I'm also low carb most of the time, but I love these Capellos, almond flour, chocolate chips. Oh my gosh, they have the sea salt in them. They're like, Sprout sells them in the refrigerated section. You just pop them in the oven for 15 minutes, and
wow,
they're so good. They're not low carb, but they are gluten-free, and they're made with really good ingredients. So that's my guilty pleasure.
Okay,
one that I could think of.
What are they called?
Capellos. They make all kinds of gluten-free stuff. Not low carb, but definitely gluten-free. Really good.
So that's an unsolicited testimonial for them, along with Sprout. So what is the biggest risk you ever took?
Gosh, I know this one was really, you know what? I'm going to say this. Moving to Florida in November of 1994 by myself, it was a total, I come from a very close family. I'm the youngest of 5. But I was just, Josh, we're both from Philly. I think we forgot to mention that. That's another thing we have in common. And I just felt very stuck where, not my family, I had a wonderful family, but I just felt very stuck. I felt like I was seeing everybody else progress in their life. And I'm like, maybe I just need to shake things up. I I always loved warm weather, and I was kind of like, I'm going to try this. So I think that was the biggest risk I took. And I've been here, gosh, it was 30 years in November.
30 years. Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
all right. So, worst piece of advice you ever got?
I might get some pushback for this, but I think follow your heart is probably the worst piece of advice I ever got, because I think that people should listen to their intuition. In my opinion, that is the voice of God speaking to you, that still small voice within. That will never lead you astray, but the heart will get you in trouble. I've just learned that in my life. So that's what I like think.
It. Okay. All right. So what do you wish you were better at dealing with?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just wish that I was better at and I'm working on this. I know we talk about this in our planning sessions, but just better at just dealing with, difficult situations, and not taking everything personally or just getting upset that somebody else is upset. The best you can do is you just need, my whole thing is I'm really working on responding and not reacting. Like, just respond and don't react. And one thing Andy taught me, I mention this to people all the time, is if you get an email and it's not like, if the house isn't on fire, it's just like a nasty email. It's not something you have to deal with right away. Like, walk away from it for 24 hours. Yeah. Come back to it with a new perspective. And I've taken that to heart, and it's been really helpful. Now, if the house is on fire, then you need to figure out how to deal with it. And I might consult another person and ask for advice, or I might take the time to research something. But I think taking 5 minutes to catch your breath and just really think about how you're going to respond, and also try to think about that person's perspective is really helpful. So
that's great. That's great advice you got there. So, all right. So what was your favorite childhood movie?
Favorite childhood movie, probably The Sound of Music. Love that movie. And I also love Shirley Temple. Oh my gosh. I was like this Shirley Temple, big Shirley Temple fan when I was little. Yeah. So anything by her.
And what one book has changed your life?
I'm going to say Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Wayne Dyer.
Love him.
Mentioning my brother Mark again, I really have to credit him. Back in late 80s, early 90s, he got me into, remember Power Talk with Tony Robbins, those cassette tapes? He got me into that, listening to those. And that's how I discovered Wayne Dyer. And that just sort of led me on this whole path of reading those kinds of books. And now I love Catherine Ponder, Florence Scovel Shinn. They're all metaphysical authors. My mom had gotten me started on the Daily Word years ago, this little monthly publication. And it takes like a metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. And it's so interesting. And it's been so interesting and helpful in my life. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it just has, from that time, just starting with Wayne Dyer, and it's just led me on that path from there. And Think and Grow Rich is another one I could think of. The Game of Life and How to Play It. So it's sort of opened up this whole new world of books for me, where I'm actually reading things that I can actually apply in my life versus, and I do enjoy a good fictional book, but I love, these books are my favorite. Self-improvement
and amazing. Good stuff. Okay. Last question is, tell us something that most people don't know about you.
Okay. Well, once upon a time, you probably know this because I mentioned it before, but once upon a time I was a ballroom dance instructor. Mostly for beginners, but it was so much fun. I worked for Arthur Mary up in Pennsylvania. And then for 4 years, I worked for the Pottstown School District in Pennsylvania before I moved to Florida, doing like the non-accredited night courses. And it was so much fun. And I continued it a little bit after I moved here, and then things got too busy, but I do miss it. It was a lot of fun, and it was just fun to watch people develop. And especially if somebody came and they were really shy and unsure of themselves, and then all of a sudden they get it and they're feeling confident. It was a lot of fun to watch that. Oh,
that's very cool. I love that. Okay. So can you tell our listeners how they can reach you specific? If someone's listening, they've got a question about content, and how can somebody reach you?
I guess by email is probably the easiest. I'm Daria Ann at lawfirmmarketingpros.com. So let me spell that. So it's DariaAnne at lawfirmmarketingpros.com. That's probably the best way, because I'm always looking at my emails and responding.
Okay.
So,
well, that's a wrap for today. Daria, so great to have you on as a guest today. Really enjoyed this chat and getting to know you better. And I look forward to seeing you soon, as I know I will. And that's a wrap for today, everybody. We will talk to everybody. We'll see everybody on the next podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to another fabulous episode of Behind the Bench. I hope you take action on some insight and tips you learned today. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share.